Hi everyone, we're going to be taking a look at our next lesson in this video as soon as I get things ready for us. So we're working on Unit 4 from Chapter 2 and we're taking a look at the different properties of angles. Today in Section 2.2 we looked at the properties of angles formed by parallel lines in particular. And what we were aiming to do was to go through them and help you discover what those properties actually were of angles that are formed by parallel lines in a transversal so that we can use them then in questions to solve unknown angles. Vocabulary I want you to be on the lookout for would be the alternate interior angles, the alternate exterior angles, and the consecutive interior angles. These were introduced in our last lesson, and so if you have any questions about what they are, please take a look at the video for 2.1. But we're going to be looking at them in particular, looking at their properties today. So we started in class by taking a look at a drawing of two parallel lines with a transversal, and I asked you to begin to experiment a little bit and to see what are some of the relationships that we find. And so if you may recall that we started with the angle A. Then we realized, well, angle D would be congruent to that one. And then we knew that angle A would be the same as angle E because of corresponding angles. And angle D would be the same as H. So we ended up having angles that were the same here and here, here and here. And if you look at those positions, you begin to understand that you've got a few things that you can say. First of all, alternate interior angles, the ones that are on the inside and on opposite sides of the transversal, they are actually equal to one another. And alternate exterior angles, once again, angles that are on alternate sides of the transversal but outside, they are also equal to one another. And lastly, once we looked at it and played with it a little bit more, we also discovered that the co-interior angles, sometimes called consecutive interior angles, these ones which are right here, so D and F would be a pair, C and E would be a pair. If we played around with our angles and checked out which ones were equal to which, we realized that those angles are supplementary to one another. And those three ideas are what carry us through the exercises that you're going to see next. So the first one was this one. You've got two parallel lines and you've got some angles marked in here, and we just started to try and figure out, okay, what is A, what is B, what is C? And so I've drawn it again here for myself, and what I did was I realized that angle A would be all the angles of this triangle, and I just had to figure out what this guy was. This was 180 minus 100, so that was 80 on that corner. And so I would say that A is 180 minus 80 minus 30, and it equals 70 when I'm finished. And what I'm using there are angles of a triangle and the supplementary angle that was right here to be able to say, find angle A. After that, I could see that angle A is exactly the same as angle B. These guys are in the position of alternate interior angles. Some people call them the Z angles or the Z angles. And so sure enough, it's 70 degrees, and that's alternate interior angles. And lastly, if I look at the angle that's sitting over here in the corner, I know that this one then would have to be a right angle because of supplementary angles. And I just figured out that this was 70. So to find C, I'll use angles of a triangle and subtract the 70 and the 90, and I get an answer of 20. The next question was rather unusual. We're being asked to find the measure of angle 1. Well, we know that angle 1 and this angle that is in that position are supplementary. And we know that angle 1 is equal to the angle that we see right here. But we don't know what x stands for, so we need to stop and figure it out. So what we know is that these two angles together will actually add up. So x squared plus x minus 25x is equal to 180. So if I move this around and treat it as it is, a quadratic, what I'm looking for are two numbers that multiply to be negative 180 and add to be negative 24. Over here, I played around with it a little bit and I found a factor tree to kind of break up the numbers and play. But they're actually not that hard. If I use negative 30 and positive 6, I fulfill both those requirements. And so that means that my values for x are positive 30 and negative 6. -6, of course, doesn't make sense in the context of an angle. And so that means that x is a 30. If the angle number 1 that I'm looking for is here and it's supplementary with x, then I know that angle 1 has to be 150 degrees. And I know that from the co-interior or consecutive interior angles. One more to go. And it was this one, a very, very interesting and kind of confusing diagram, actually. So if we look at it once again, well, it's not too hard to find B. B is going to be supplementary because these lines were parallel in the original diagram. And so these are supplementary. So that guy would be 150. This guy would be 120. Once I knew those two, then I could find C because this is angles at a point. So C turned out to be 90 degrees. But the big one that really kind of took everybody by surprise was this one. Let me draw over top of it. So if you look at this, you're going to see a Z. The Z has to start and end with parallel lines. And sure enough, what that means is that this angle and this angle are exactly the same size. We'd figured out that this was 90. So that means that angle D is going to be 60. So there you have it. Those are some examples of some of the harder types of questions you're going to see. You'll notice I gave you a worksheet in class to work on. I want you to do numbers 16 to 42, just the even numbers only. If you can take a look at some of the earlier questions, decide whether that's something that you would need to practice or not. You can make the choice, but do practice from 16 on. And then take a look. Sorry, I'll go back and then take a look as well at the textbook. Keep in mind that some of these are difficult. I found that the textbook actually jumped in at a very high level, which made for a challenging part for it. So do your best and make sure you bring questions tomorrow. Remember that we do have a quiz on this material tomorrow, and so I'll look forward to your questions. Take care, everyone.